talk about moving. A lot of people are living in the city and they want to get out and move to the country or buy a piece of land, and it requires moving people and stuff. I'm kind of in charge of moving all of the stuff, which is, it's going to be everything out of the house, everything out of the business, and so the way we've chosen to do that is with 20-foot shipping containers. So the shipping containers are 8 foot wide, 8 foot high, and 20 foot long, and they're dry proof. Meaning they're sealed watertight as shipping containers. Going across the ocean, they've got to be absolutely sealed tight. So we were able to pick these up, hunted around, found a pretty good deal on them, and most of these we've picked up at around $2,000 or $2,200 a piece. So that's a little bit of money. If we figure 6 of those containers at $2,000 a piece, that's $12,000. $12,000 is a lot of money. It's also a lot of your possible resource that's got to go into moving and storing, I guess, all of your stuff. The beauty of it is that when we build a house and pull our stuff out, that we can sell these back to somebody else, and the likelihood is that we'll get a lot more than $12,000. We'll get a lot more than $12,000 back for the shipping containers. So we've had the convenience of having all of our storage on our own property, so we can access our stuff at any time. We haven't had to pay any storage units, facilities, for the convenience of having a dry place to store stuff, and we've had the mobility to put them on the trailer and move them exactly where we want. Now, when you start to talk about craning them on a truck and craning them off the truck and moving them around, there is some expense. So even if we were able to sell them down the road at $2,500 a piece or $3,000 a piece, we might make an extra $3,000 to $6,000, but most of that is going to be eaten up in what we spent on cranes in loading and unloading. So truthfully, we won't really make any money, but it won't really cost us any money either. However, we have had all of that resource, that money for the shipping containers has been tied up, but it's kind of a necessary evil when you move to a raw piece of land, that you've got to have some kind of a dry, safe space to store your stuff where you can access it and use it. We tried to do a good job at loading up the containers and putting house stuff like couches and beds and furniture and those types of things in 1 or 2 containers. And if it was tools or something that we might need to get to right away, like garage stuff, that went into other shipping containers. So we can access those shipping containers for working on projects around the homestead as we develop the property and work on building the house. So I don't know that everybody needs 6 shipping containers, but when you've got 2 families, 10 people, 8 kids, that makes for a lot of stuff. That's a lot of beds, that's a lot of chairs, it's a lot of things. And then when you consider that being a builder for a long time, I've got a lot of tools, and I don't want to have to go out and replace those tools, so it makes sense to spend the money to be able to transport those tools and everything in the shop to the new property so that we can use them for building the house. The other thing I worry about is I move stuff for a living. I as a builder, being in construction, whether it's moving equipment or moving materials or moving crews of guys to jobs, I do it for a living, and so I probably have a different view of moving stuff than other people. Most people, the idea of putting a 12,000 pound shipping container on the back of a trailer and then craning it off full of your stuff is probably a crazy idea for most people. But for me, we do it all the time. We'll move a shipping container to a job site, unload it, it'll sit on the job site for the life of the job, and then when we are done, we load our stuff back into it, crane it on the trailer, and go to the next job. So I've got a lot of experience with it. It's not intimidating, it's not scary. I understand that it works. The other thing is, most people might say, well, why not just put all your stuff in a moving truck, move up there, unload your stuff? Well, the thing that's tough for us is timelines. In this neck of the woods, Montana, Idaho, in this area, the summer seasons are short and travel can be treacherous. So being able to not spend our time going back and forth, taking a long time to load stuff into trucks, unload stuff into trucks, where there's a chance that things can get broken. Being able to crane onto a trailer, drive the 1,000 miles, and then crane it off makes things happen really fast. So that in a weekend, I can drive 500 miles, meet with the crane guy, load up, drive 500 miles, and make that round trip really quick without having to rent a U-Haul, go over, unload a container. Really, it would take all day with the whole family to unpack all the boxes, repack all the boxes into the truck, drive over, and then unpack the boxes out of a truck and then back into a storage unit. So there's some time savings there, but we decided that parting with the money that we could possibly recoup when we sell the shipping containers was a quicker way to go and a better way to go than moving everything by hand, one box at a time. So that's some insight on how and why we made our decision. But I don't know, that may not work for you. Maybe having a truck and a trailer isn't something you've got, and so renting a U-Haul truck, that works. But I still think that you can use the same type of logic and thinking to put things in similar sized boxes and use hand trucks for loading and unloading your shipping containers, or your moving trucks or whatever, that will speed things up and make things go a lot quicker. A lot to be said for just selling your junk, taking whatever cash you can get, and then buying new junk when you get to wherever you're going. The truth of the matter is I wonder if when we sold our house, if we should have just sold it with the furniture in it. We might have only gotten $5,000 additional dollars maybe, or maybe we would have gotten $10,000 additional dollars for all the furniture and refrigerators and everything with the house. But when we consider the cost of moving it and then being able to get something brand new later, it may be cheaper to just sell your stuff and replace it down the road. I think there's something to be said for being a little more minimalist and getting rid of your stuff and being able to just replace it if you need it, when you need it. Because there is some risk associated with all of this moving and stuff being in colder climates and colder temperatures, and and we may have, who knows, there may have been some water in a washing machine that froze a water line, and it's going to cost 70 bucks to get it replaced when we get it out of the shipping container. And maybe we would have been better off to just sell that washing machine with the house and get a new washing machine when we get the house built. Who knows? Those are some personal decisions that you're going to have to think about and make as you move from wherever you're at to wherever you're going, whether that be a homestead or a new house or however you're doing it. The other is thinking about fuel costs. There's a lot of difference between paying $3 for gas and paying $4 for gas, whether that be gas or diesel. So when you think about, hey, when the truck's empty, I might get 10 or 11 miles to the gallon, maybe 12 if I'm going downhill and I've got a tailwind, maybe. But as soon as you load all that heavy stuff on the trailer, you're going to get, even in a diesel truck, you're going to get 6 or 7 miles to the gallon. And when you start talking about doing 500 or 1,000 miles, it can get really, really expensive. So you've got truck and trailer costs, you've got the shipping container costs, whatever those are to purchase. You've got the crane costs to load and unload. You've got fuel costs and whatever it costs to run that truck back and forth. And then whatever cost you've got to set up a spot to set the containers. Now, we're not getting too fancy. We're just we're going to level up some railroad ties and set the containers on railroad ties up off the ground and out of the moisture so we don't rust the bottom of these things. And they'll sit for a long, long time. The bottom of these shipping containers are tarred, and so they're well protected. But if we can help by getting them up on some railroad ties, that should help the longevity. So we've got the cost to create the pad, to buy the railroad ties, and then get them set. When you start to add it all up of those costs, the idea of just selling your stuff and then replacing it becomes a lot more. It's not just dollar for dollar. I mean, you could take a 50 cents on the dollar loss on your couch, and you'd actually be money ahead when you considered all of the cost of moving that couch and storing it, depending on what your situation is. For us, we need to store our stuff for a year or two while we're building a house. So long-term storage is important to us, and it's why we've decided to go this shipping container route. And we may not sell them all. We may end up keeping them and using them for storing hay or grain or whatever for animals, or keeping mowers or other things out of the weather, because they make such great storage for down the road. We may say, hey, we've got them, we pulled all of our stuff out of them, and now we'll use them for tool storage or hay storage or whatever around the homestead. So a lot to consider. I don't know that I'm trying to be as informative as possible to give you some insight into whether or not shipping containers might be a good thing for you and your move to the country. But I may just be confusing you. I think another thing to consider is that because there's a lot of money invested in transport, one option might be order up a couple of shipping containers and have them delivered and set on your property wherever you're at, but then load up a moving truck and then move to the property and unload your stuff on the property into the shipping containers. Even if you had 1 or 2 or 3 of them, unload all your personal belongings into the shipping containers, and then they're there, it's on site, and then you've got the shipping containers there, and you don't have to worry about the craning it on, craning it off. It might be some savings there for you. So there's a lot of ways to go about moving and getting there. I think one of the most important things is that wherever you're going, that you have a landing pad. And when I say a landing pad, I mean a dry, enclosed, protected place to put your stuff. Because whether you get there and you just have some tree trimmers and a chainsaw to start opening up and clearing space on your property, you're going to want to be able to keep your tools out of the weather and locked up and safe and secure. Or it might just be that you want to drop a shipping container on your property and put a wood stove in the back of it and at least have a place to get warm and dry and on your property. They're a very inexpensive way to have shelter on the property while you're developing your homestead. So a lot of really useful ways to use that shipping container even after you've moved to the property. So no one way is better than another. It's all about what's going to work for you. But when I look at even the cost of buying an inexpensive yurt or building your own yurt, it might be $5,000 or $6,000 in lumber and materials. And when I think that I could get a shipping container even at $3,000, that means I could get 2 shipping containers and I would have all of that dry, protected space. And I don't think a black bear or any other bear is going to tear through the side of a shipping container, but he definitely can tear through the side of a yurt or a tent or some other soft shell living place. Even a camper trailer is not going to hold a bear back for very long. So the level of protection you get with shipping containers are pretty incredible. Now, one thing that I hear a lot is people say, I don't want a shipping container because they look too industrial, they look horrible. Well, okay, that's fair. But paint them green, tuck them back in the trees, and let the grass grow up around them, and you won't even hardly see them or know that they're there.